Hey guys, we got a very special episode happening today. It's going to be a little bit unorthodox for what we normally do, but I think you guys can handle it. So I'm sure if you're tuning into this episode, you're familiar with my guest. But for those who aren't, Rick Beato is the definitive voice for modern music on YouTube. His "What Makes This Song Great" episodes were his earliest successes, and that's how I became aware of his channel and initially subscribed to his channel was those episodes. But he's since then kind of become the definitive voice and the channel of record on YouTube for, I'll just say, modern music, because he doesn't just do rock and roll. He does jazz, he does hip hop, he's done folk, country. So if you're not subscribed and you enjoy music, and if you're a musician, I absolutely recommend that you do subscribe to him. As you can see from this screenshot of his homepage today, he is about to hit 4 million subscribers. And he and I met when he was just past 1 million, or he was nibbling at 1 million way back then. But his interviews with Sting, with Brian May, with the guys from Soundgarden, with Michael McDonald, with all the guys from Police, including Andy Summers, and he just did one with Stuart Copeland. They are the interviews of record. And again, he's done a lot to grow the channel, and he's a model for how to have a successful channel. So without any further ado, please welcome Rick Beato. Hold it, Rick. Let me pull this out. There we go.
What's up, Ward?
How are you?
Doing great. How are you?
I'm doing great. So we're doing this because I've been on your channel twice, and we realized when we were doing one of our daily communiques, because we talk almost every day, that I was negligent in having you on my channel. So
guilt tripped you, Ward.
You guilt tripped me. Yeah. Not that it was too hard to get me to do it. But as always, everybody, we're going to be bouncing between me working the assets and trying to get to the questions in the comments. So I want this to be an opportunity for you to ask Rick questions, maybe in a way that you can't when he does a live stream because of the volume of the audience. So just we'll stand by for that. So Rick, let's start with you talking about how did you go from a very eclectic music background and hit the high points of your bio to being a YouTuber?
Well, what I was doing before YouTube was I was a music producer. I have a degree in jazz studies, master's degree, undergrad degree in classical bass. But I primarily, for the last, from 1999 until 2016, I worked as a full-time music producer, producing mainly rock bands, but really all different genres of rock. And in 2015, in December, I put up a video of my son Dylan, who has insanely good perfect pitch, on my Facebook page. And that was to show my friend Shane, who I was doing a record with, a country record, to show his wife. Dylan had come down. I played some insane chords for Dylan. Dylan was naming him. Shane said, "Could you do that?" I did it, and that video got tens of millions of views between about 3 different places I posted it. On Shane's channel, it got over 20 million views. But and then I got so much email about how did Dylan learn how to do this, that about 6 months later, I started my YouTube channel. It was right after my mom passed away, actually. I had an intern, Rhett Shull, who is also a YouTuber. He was not a YouTuber at that time. And he said, "Why don't you start a YouTube channel?" And of course, my classic saying was, nobody's going to watch a white-haired guy on YouTube. So, Antonio, there you go. So that pretty much where I started. And I started kind of like you started, Ward, where I was posting all different bouncing around, a lot of music theory videos. I posted videos on drum tuning. I posted essentially things that I was working on while I was producing. If I was retuning the drums for a session, I showed how to change the heads, and I'd make videos on things like that, or whatever it was that we were getting ready for. Because I still worked for about 5 months before I switched to doing YouTube full time. I was still working as a producer. So now tomorrow I should hit 4 million subscribers and have made 1,300 videos on this channel. I have a second channel, Rick Beato 2, that I've got a lot of I have original content, and I have a lot of clips that I do, because a lot of big channels that have long videos have clip videos. So that's what my Rick Beato 2 is. And it's a incredibly fun thing to do, as you can attest to, Ward.
Yeah,
so
it's work. So let's get to how you and I met, and then we'll get into the best practices. I'll admittedly, the thumbnail is a little clickbaity. I'm not asking everybody to quit their jobs. Don't do anything reckless out there. Maybe I should put a warning. Your results may vary from Ward and Rick's, but let's talk about it, because maybe like you inspired me. Maybe somebody's out there who's just sitting on the fence and has an idea, and they just need the tools, as it were. Here I am wearing my Tool T-shirt. The tools to make it happen. So let's go back to the way back. So here is the first time you and I met. This is in the streets of Annapolis in 2018.
yeah.
So you had just visited the Paul Reed Smith factory.
Yep.
Across the bay from Annapolis. That's in Stevensville. Paul Reed Smith originally made guitars in Annapolis, and then he got kind of priced out because the square footage for a factory isn't, in downtown. It got a little bit too much. So he went over to Kent Island, and you still see him around town all the time. But anyway, you were in town. We had connected through, I was subscribed to you, and you followed me on Twitter at the time. And I was doing some op-ed writing at places like Bulwark and the Dispatch. And so we connected, and you said, hey, I'm over here. Is that close to Annapolis? And so long story short, we wound up having some beers at McGarvey's, which is a legendary watering hole here on City Dock. It has an aviation theme. The original owner actually attended the release party for Punk's War back in 2001.
Wow.
That company, or the restaurant, has since been bought out by some Academy grads, actually. So Mike is no longer the owner. He retired, which he earned. But in any case, we had this sort of, had we ever talked on the phone or anything before then?
I don't think so. No.
And so we, obviously I recognize you. You saw some pictures of me on social media, but immediately we just started finishing each other's sentences, and we say brothers from different mothers. So what do you remember about that conversation, and how you thought that maybe I should do YouTube?
I knew, Ward. I can tell people that that you would be great on camera, and you have a great voice, and that's it. That's all you need to know. It's you're being a writer. I mean, so much about YouTube is talking to the camera. As I'm looking away here, so much about YouTube is talking to being able to talk to the camera as if it's a person, because that's what you're doing, is you are talking to people. And I could tell immediately I'm very good at identifying people that would be YouTubers. I don't know why, but you have to have innate skills. You have to be depending on the types of videos that you make, but having subject matter expertise is really, really important, which you have in the military aviation space, right? But you have an incredibly diverse background in so many different things, and you're unbelievably knowledgeable about music, Ward. You could go toe to toe music trivia with anybody that I know, which is an incredible thing.
Well, that's our first conversations were not about being a YouTuber. It was about, hey, do you know this guy? Do you know this guy? I was, name dropping on all the rock and rollers I'd met during principally my Navy career. And also our good friend Jim Barber, now a frequent guest on your channel. And so, I knew Jim back in 87, 88 when he was managing Driving and Crying. So we're like, I think you were.
And I knew Jim from back in the mid 90s.
Yeah, from the 90s. And we'll talk about Billionaire, but I think you were, I don't know, maybe surprised is the word, at how much I was an insider for rock and roll as this average aviator kind of thing. Yeah. And I think that was the fun, right? Our Venn diagram overlaps more than just in a meta kind of way, right?
But I think that our skill sets, as far as in our disciplines, if you will, are very similar, because it's not just about making the videos on demand. Being able to get on and do live streams is a particular skill that not every YouTuber possesses, but you happen to possess this. And this is a really, I think that's another aspect of your success, is your ability to connect to the audience, be able to field questions, be able to do interviews. Not everybody is good with doing interviews, and you're great at doing interviews. And, that's nothing I had ever done. I didn't know I could do interviews. I never thought about doing interviews. So there's all these skills that you learn being a YouTuber, many of, some of which you don't know that you have, but I'm pretty good at identifying, I think, people that have these unique skill sets. Well, it's a matter of doing it.
So I ask you, so what do I do? Right? Because you're like, why are you doing so much Twitter? I'm like, I don't know. It's just the thing I do. You go, why don't you do YouTube? Now I had this channel. It was kind of a repository for family B-roll,
which is what mine was as well.
Right. So
my YouTube channel,
Mrs. Mooch doing dog shows, my nephews eating a chocolate egg and having it all over their face, whatever, that kind of thing. So when you look at my YouTube stats, it says I've had the channel for like 13 years,
Mine says since 2006, Ward.
Yeah. But that's not quite accurate. I mean, it's technically accurate, but not accurate in terms of the Ward Carroll that we know now channel. So let me bring up a picture here of the first episode. So this is me in the first episode I ever did. So this is let's just call it the pilot, right? And so I recorded this on my iPhone, right? Not this one, like this is a new one, but it was an iPhone 11. And then I sent it to you. Yeah. I'm like, you're like, it's like the upfronts in New York. You're like the studio exec. I'm like, what about this? You go, no, that's perfect. That's it. Do it. Because when I was asking, what do I talk about? You're like, well, whatever you're doing on Twitter, just make a 10, 15-minute video about that. That was kind of the guidance, right?
Yeah.
And we'll get into the sort of details because folks are asking some specific questions. My good friend Tom Butwin is asking a good question, and we'll get to those, Tom. But the first thing, it's like, okay, you didn't give me too much rudder in terms of subject matter. You were just like, okay, yeah, just let it flow. Here's how you make a thumbnail, and we'll talk about. Well, why don't we talk about that now? So there's a thing called Bazart, right? Is the app. And it's like, I describe it, Rick, as poor man's Photoshop.
Yeah.
And so it's pretty intuitive. And, I've gotten pretty good. I mean,
let me tell the backstory about that, Ward. Okay. So as you can see, Ward's, if Ward scrolls up, you'll see all his different iterations of thumbnails, right? So back in 2018 or so, my daughter Lennon, who's 14 now, so she was I don't know, about 7, she said, I can make better thumbnails than you can. I said, what are you talking about? The way you make thumbnails is really bad. You should use the app I use. And I said, what is that? And then that was the app. And how do you spell it? Bazaart. So I go to the app store, I download it, and I said, wow, this is great. So I started making my thumbnails in that. And then all of my YouTuber friends I told about that because they were saying, wow, your thumbnails look really good. I said, oh, my daughter Lennon told me that I should use this app. And now all my YouTuber friends use the app, which is pretty funny. So
yeah, it's really magic. It's intuitive. You know, you can get good at it with repeated attempts. If you look at, you know, my homepage, you know, in fact, let me bring that up. You know, you can see that, you know, I've come.
Ward makes incredible thumbnails. That's the part about this, the graphic designer part.
So here, I don't know if can you see that, Rick? Are you seeing what I'm?
Yeah.
Okay, so you can see the thumbnails have come a long way, I guess, or you know, some were better than others.
Farewell to the F-14. Look at that thing. That looks amazing.
Yeah, that's Spencer Garrett narrated that, which I'm very proud of.
Secret truth behind Super Hornet UFO encounters. 1.8 million, Ward.
Yeah. So since we're on that was an idea that Rick gave me. He's like, well, how about UFOs? You know, so basically it's like open the aperture a little bit. And, you know, what that allows is a horizon, you know? So, my channel started with, you know, that episode that never saw the light of day, by the way. And then I had the first big one, which was the truth about the F-14 and Goose's death. That hit 95,000 in one day. And then we had the Kara Hultgreen mishap analysis episode, which was the first to hit 1 million, and so forth and so on. And so the building blocks, as Rick says, there's a lot of parallels between what I do and what he does in our own genre. But the building blocks are, as you say, Rick, look in the camera, because the first episodes, I didn't even use iMovie. It's just, you know, one take Jake, me staring into the phone,
It's amazing.
right? You know, and then like, okay, I guess I'm done, right? And then make it live and put a thumbnail using Bazart and then see what happens. And so it took about 4 months of doing that before I had the first, you know, first one that came out of 4 digits, as it were. So again, we're talking about what do you need to do? Well, you need to have command of a subject, any subject. You know, you can be a musician, you can be a former aviator, you can be a handyman, you can be a mechanic, you can be somebody who's into horticulture, a high school football coach, lacrosse techniques, whatever. And just think of your own YouTube behavior. You know, I mean, because I love using YouTube for everything. I mean, I have this amplifier over here with the tubes pulled out of it. And how do I know how to do that on this, you know, brand new Mesa Boogie Mark 25 V head that I have, or Mark 5 V, Mark 5 25 that I just got? Well, you type that in, tubes on a Mark 5 25, and boom, there's a whole bunch of videos. And usually I click on the one with the coolest thumbnail and the highest number of views in the episode, right? And generally that doesn't steer you wrong. But let me get to Tom's question here, because he asks, and by the way, Tom is the guy who created the outro theme for the channel, and Tom also warmed up Danger Boy as a solo act at last Muchapalooza, and I hope he can repeat that this year, Tom. It's on July 13th. Hope you can join us. But here's Tom's question, Rick. Would love to know your thoughts on the future of quote unquote being a YouTuber with respect to sponsorships, affiliate marketing, making it a sustainable business, and overcoming an oversaturated market.
Okay, so this is interesting. I don't think that YouTube is oversaturated. I think YouTube is just getting started. Yes, it's been a company since 2006. I think Google's owned it since 2011 or 12. But YouTube is a search engine. The types of YouTubers that can make it, you know, people that are my age, I'm going to be 62 next month. There's all different kind of channels that have sprung up in the last couple of years that have done extremely well. I think that people can become YouTubers at any time, and if you have great content, people will watch. As far as sponsorships, everybody kind of has their own thing that they do. I've never done sponsorships or affiliate marketing because when I started in 2016, there was really you didn't know how to do things like that. Even the analytics that are available nowadays for your channel, that you could show if you're going to talk about a sponsorship, it would be difficult to explain to people the reach of your channel. You could say, "Oh, this video did this well," but it's kind of it was really, the analytics are not nearly as granular as they are now. So, and I just didn't know anyone that did YouTube at the time, so I didn't know about affiliate marketing. I don't have a background in business, and I just knew that I didn't want to advertise any music gear because anytime I had an opinion on something, I wanted it to be unfiltered, and I'd be able to say whatever I wanted. So the only thing that I've ever endorsed is my Gibson signature guitar, which I give all my proceeds to charity, which is Save the Music. So that's the only, there it is right there. That's my signature double cut special in Pelham Blue. And that's, and I've never done any of these. I've never done that. But most of the YouTubers that I know do both sponsored videos and affiliate links in their descriptions, and it can be really profitable for them. So,
yeah, I know that people who watch my channel often know that I, time to time, maybe twice, 3 times a month, do a sponsored episode. I have a management company. In fact, I just changed companies at the turn of the year, and now have a guy that comes from the military affinity space, the digital space. And so he gets me in a way that my previous marketing management company didn't. No offense to those guys, but I'd have to always explain what it is I'm doing, and it got a little bit frustrating. And from time to time, I would say, it'd be awesome if you were a consumer of my content while you're pitching me to,
kind of an important thing, Ward,
Yeah, right. And so my new guy gets it, and but you got to watch. There is a crossover point where suddenly people are getting irritated to the point they're clicking away.
right.
So I don't want to do that. And also, you got to make sure that the videos or the sponsors are kind of in your wheelhouse. And so I was getting force fed some opportunities previously. In fact, in one case, I reluctantly did it, and then the client was angry that the conversion rate wasn't great, and it was a fantasy game you play on your phone, like Dragons and Wizards, and my audience skews 45 plus, and so I just kind of lost it on my guy. I'm like, so you mean the old folks who watch my channel don't want to play fantasy games on their phone? I'm color me shocked, right? And so that was the end of that. So here's our good friend Sal at what is going on with shipping, who I've had on the channel a couple of times. Ward was one of my motivations to start his own channel, and he just hit 200,000 subscribers today. Sal,
wow, congrats.
I'm so proud of you. Way to go. And that is if you're watching and you're not subscribed to Sal, you absolutely need to, because he is the subject matter expert for particularly what's going on in the Red Sea and the Gulf of Aden right now, but all things dealing with shipping, the business cases, everything else. And so that's great news, Sal. I don't want to miss anybody because we got some good questions here. Let's make sure. Oh, here we go. So Juan at Blanca Lirio, another great YouTube channel, a guy who's influenced me. He says, let's address the demonetization issues. This is something that Rick knows a lot more than I do. So Rick, let's talk about
more than I'd like to know, Ward.
Yeah. So let's talk about the nature of it. Is there any way to fight it? What have you experienced?
So I started getting demonetizations when I would use music, really with the what makes a song great series that I did where I did breakdowns of famous songs using the multi-tracks or the stems. And the video would immediately get demonetized because I was using the people's copywritten material. Now, you can appeal these and say it's fair use, which in my case, it is actually fair use if I'm doing analyses of them, using it for teaching. But I personally never really fought the demonetizations. Although if you fight them and it's fair use, you will win this, but you need to take it to the dispute level, and you need to take it as far as it goes. And you run the risk of getting a strike on your channel. But ultimately, all the people that I know that fight these win them eventually. For me, I have so many videos that it's really not worth the time to deal with it. And did my video the end get blocked? I don't know. Somebody just asked me that, Ward. Maybe it did. Occasionally my video.
Which one are they talking about?
The end, the Beatles, the end. I wonder if it did get blocked. Maybe it did. See? So demonetizations, you have to fight them when you get them if it's fair use. I'm going to look this up right now, Ward, see if it is. But
okay,
they don't send out emails if you get a blocked video nowadays, which they used to do, which is something which I hope they would start doing again.
Well, sometimes you get them. It's not always. So I've had some experience, not as much as Rick, because I'm not nibbling at the copyright. Although I do have a copyright experience with a musician who's been on Rick's channel, who gave me permission to use his song, and it turns out he didn't own the publishing rights to it, and so it got a copyright hit. But so there's different levels, right? So you'll get a copyright, like as it uploads, it'll do ad suitability and copyright. So after you upload it, it takes a while and the thing spins, and it's kind of like you're white knuckling it, making sure, because obviously you want your episode monetized. It does matter, especially if you think it's going to be a hit, in 6-digit, 7-digit range. And so if you get first an ad suitability, and with me, this is kind of my soft underbelly, like Rick deals with music, like popular music, and he can rattle off the artists that are blockers and copyright hitters. With me, some of the nature of what I do. So as folks know, I've been covering the wars since October 7th, right? So there's something about those that, depending on if it shows an explosion, obviously if it shows dead bodies or people getting shot, that's going to be an ad suitability. So that means that only certain ads, they will also age restrict. And so that means you got to be logged into YouTube and you can't be younger than 18. And I know from experience that is a major hit, like 75% impact on an episode. And then the other is copyright. So this is another solid that Rick did for me, besides Bazart and, hey, be a YouTuber, is also the boilerplate language, the legal language that you can use for a dispute. And I'm proud to say that I've won 60% of the disputes, including most recently. I used, and this was a Houthi related episode, and I was saying they're resilient, so it was like, I'm not dead yet. I used that holy grail, I'm not dead yet. And I was kind of proud that Monty Python nailed me for that. And then I used the boilerplate, like, okay, fair use. And it actually, makes the original work more valuable, which I said with a straight face. And they said, okay, yeah, we released the copyright hit. You can have.
Well, to be fair, so I got that language from a channel called Legal Eagle. The Devin, who I know that's the lawyer on that channel, he's the one that turned me on to the language to use for the copyright claims. So he sent it to me. So I would pass it along to my YouTuber friends.
So, and this is, again, you schooled me on, okay, I know you're upset, but there is value in, it's more than just lucre. There's value in subscribers. There's value in a subject that you have. They will be shared. So if you get a copyright hit, it's not the end of the world. Now, if the episode gets taken down,
Yeah.
And I've only had that happen one time. And that was because I used an image of a Russian airplane. And I didn't realize that I didn't even know who the photographer was. And so he had it taken down. And that was a sponsored episode. So this was a big problem. And this happened, of course, on a Sunday. And so I'm scrambling and I found his contact information. I asked him and he said, yeah, sure. And I said, I'll credit you in the episode description. And so he released the copyright hit and it was live again, like boom.
Instantly.
I mean, it happens like instantly. Just like if you go into the editing tool and you carve out whatever's problematic, as soon as it is recognizing that, YouTube will make it live again. It is a very effective and time sensitive tool that they have. It's not like it's going through some arbitration and you're spending weeks waiting for a ruling. It can happen pretty quickly. But again, this is sort of the nature, especially when this is your day job, and if you're only doing, for me, I'm doing somewhere between 10 and 12 episodes a month on a good month, so every one needs to be kind of, a potential player. And if it's not, then I just wasted 3 or 4 days in the creation of that episode. Not wasted, but it's disappointing. So you want to be able to dispute it, and hopefully you win the disputes.
Yes, it's got Legal Eagle Devin. He wins 99.9% of his disputes. There's very little case law apparently on fair use for a reason. They don't want any cases decided. They don't want any legal precedents or anything. So ultimately you fight it to the end and they always give in at the end.
Right. Yeah.
So
the other thing that can be of value is having a network, a community. And so you have your posse, and, guys who've become friends of mine, Keith, Rhett, Tim, all of the guys who are on your team, and you. So I've been on your channel twice. The first one was this episode, which is the Rick Beato 2 channel, which is now rapidly growing to be as popular as Rick Beato, the main channel. But it's kind of like ESPN. Do you know if you're watching ESPN 2 or ESPN 1, or ESPN Academic or the Ocho? I mean, it doesn't even matter,
right,
which one you're watching. So I have some behind the scenes. This is a special episode, so I have some behind the scenes footage from that episode. This is history here. This is now we had met in Annapolis, but here's the first time that my son and I and our good friend Jim Barber arrived at Rick's house. So let's watch this. There he is.
What's up?
How are you, Stone Shake? Brothers Hug.
How are you, man?
Rick Beato, everybody. This is my son Reed.
How are you? Good to meet you.
And you know Jim Barber?
Yep. Hey, how are you, Jim? Good to see you.
So that was kind of cool. And then
I have to say, Ward, I've lost 25 or 30 pounds since then. So
yes,
I'm just,
okay. I was just down there. I can verify that is true.
Man.
So we get into the room that everybody knows about, right? And so guys like Tom will enjoy this. So there's the famous backline, right? So if you're a rock and roll, junkie and a gearhead like me, this is just the stuff of a fantasy, right? So you got Marshall's Orange, High Watt, Sound City, the Parkhead, EVH. Is that a PV in there? You got one PV?
Yes, of course. Okay. Got to have a PV.
Yeah. So it's really cool. All flavors of Marshall, Jubilee, Plexi, just fantastic. And then you have your guitar rack. So, I have currently 3 guitars and you have 300 guitars, right? So all manner of Gibsons, which again, as a Gibson guy, that's super cool. But we sit down, right? And you're like, so what's the episode about? Kind of like this episode. Like, so what's it about? Right. So we're spitballing just on the spot. Like, how about this? You're like, no, that won't work. And so we settled on this 10 what you're calling classic albums, but sort of like perfect albums, right? And I mean, off the top of my head, what do we have? We had Rumors, we had Pearl Jam 10, we had Trick of the Tail, Genesis, we had Boston's first album,
Back in Black.
Back in Black. These are from the days of, LPs where you never had the impulse to lift the needle, right? It was just like, just let it play, flip it over, let it play. Asia, Steely Dan Asia is a perfect album, right? But here is, after we've decided that we're going to do this, here's a blooper. It's very quick, but here's the blooper.
Hey everybody, I'm Rick Beato, and this is my friend Ward Carroll. Ward is in town visiting. Ward actually has a YouTube channel that has over 100,000 subscribers. Tell them about your channel, Ward.
So it's a channel. Well,
hold on, we're going to start again. What was wrong with that, Ward? I have no idea.
It was obviously me.
Right? Must have been. You must have waited too long.
Yeah. Come on, kid. Big city time here.
I'm watching it. I'm thinking, like, great intro. What's wrong with that? Why
this ain't the sticks of Annapolis. You're in the big city now.
Maybe somebody dropped something, or maybe I spilled something at my foot. Spilled the water on the power strip.
Tom says, I thought it was a green screen background. No, this is real gear. I am proud to say. So yeah, we did that episode, which was a blast. And then, and I saw a pretty big uptick in my subscribers. And I think people, who think of my channel as primarily a Tomcat, military aviation, and now sort of some current events, military themed current events and history, they're like, oh, and why is he talking to Rick Beato? And so over time, people get it,
people freak out that I know you, Ward. They're like, oh my God, you know Ward Carroll? What? Yeah,
right. I'm sure
that's actually true.
Oh, well, I will say this. Okay. Well, I'm getting ahead. So the second episode we did a couple of months ago was this, what we called Rock's Greatest Second Albums, right? And so that was this episode, where we're there with Fran Capitanelli and Jim Barber. And so that was another one where we're like, okay, let's just start the conversation. And you had the set, which is around the table with the mics, kind of a Joe Rogan, kind of a podcast, a straight stick podcast format. And the conversation went a lot of different ways, kind of like Artists Who Should Have Made It, which is kind of like Fran, his band, the Tom Collins, was the Can't Miss Kids. And Jim Barber was trying to make that happen. And, the timing was off, as we know, that's part of it, and that's something about YouTube too. I mean, we're trading on public taste, as I like to say, but the reason we were down in Atlanta is because Rick did one of his live shows, and the feature of this show was his band, his band I'll let him talk about what's going on currently, but his band from the 90s did a showcase. And so here they are at the sound check. So there's Rick over on the left with his Jubilee stack. The other guitarist has a Plexi with a stack. Very cool rig. It sounded fantastic. So we were in town for that. And again, this is where, as a gear guy, I'm not down there as an aviator. I'm down there as a musician. Now Rick, I was flattered that he announced I was in the house during the show. He said, my friend Ward, who has his own channel, is here, and he knows ... So I had a dozen people come up to me after the show, and say, I love your channel too. I'm here to see Rick, but I really love your channel. And one guy was an airline pilot for Delta, obviously Atlanta, Delta's headquartered there. But so again, I can't, overstate how much your support and this network has grown my channel. So another best practice we're saying here is have friends. And it's better if your friends have 4 million subscribers.
Ward, I have to break in here. So Ward has had days where he's gotten way more. I've never had a day as big as Ward has had multiple days with subscribers. Ward has had multiple 10,000 plus subscriber days, which is insane. He also has had videos that have gotten 1 million views in a day multiple times. And in YouTube terms, that is incredibly rare. I mean, you have to have just an explosive video that connects people. And one time when Ward had one of those videos, we were both on YouTube trending on the same day.
Yeah, that was
top 50 YouTube videos.
So that's, you bring up another point. So the analogy I use as a recreational golfer with friends who are pros, including Billy Hurley, who's an academy grad who won a tournament in 2016, hurt his back, and now he's trying to get his card back. But being a YouTuber is like being a golf pro, meaning there are no guarantees. You can win the Masters and then you can have trouble making the cut for the next month. And so if you look at my curve, including subscribers, because Rick will be, we'll do our morning check-in. It'll be like, how many subscribers did you make yesterday? And sometimes the answer is 112. And sometimes it's 6,000, right? So I'm at peace with the vagaries of public taste, because what happens the first time you get a 1 million view episode, like with me, it was the Kara Hultgreen episode at the end of June in 2021. So this is like 5-6 months into the existence of my channel. I have 1 million. That's a bucket list number, right? And so I'm sort of thinking, well, now every episode will be 1 million, right? And then the next one, it's like maybe 25K. And so if you're white knuckling it against the outcome, you're gonna kind of drive yourself crazy. And I'm sure Juan and the other YouTubers in the chat here, Sal, can recognize that, can relate to that, because you got to kind of just do your thing and let, it's like Jonathan Livingston Seagull, right? Let it go. And if it comes back to you, it was meant to be or whatever, but you kind of give it to the people, and then what happens, happens. So for me, the ones that have had this huge velocity, one was the Ghost of Kiev, right? Which was that fable that everybody freaked out about that ultimately wasn't true. I love the spirit of it as a guy who supports the Ukrainian effort, particularly the Air Force in the early days. The idea of a single MiG-29, going out and bagging 2, coming back, getting more gas, bagging 2 more, and then doing it a third time. I love that notion. And so ultimately it turned out that there wasn't a single guy. This was sort of a metaphor for the entire Ukrainian Air Force, which I documented. But anyway, that went to 2 million in 48 hours. And then some of the other war ones that I've done more recently, specifically the Carrier Strike Group kind of explainers, have hit 1 million. So, you're like, oh, and those are easier to do than the longer form, so this is a 3-minute video with me explaining the makeup of the Ike Carrier Strike Group or the Ford Carrier Strike Group or whatever, which I can do in my sleep, right? And so those had rapid growth. And again, you're like, oh, so here's a way, but at the same time, I don't want to be a news channel. I want to be all the things that I'm doing, including, talk to guys like you and talk music and talk art and talk movies and other things, other interests. I want this channel to be a reflection of me to the degree that the audience will tolerate it, because you guys get a vote, but not too much of a vote. I'm not a slave to, your vagaries, your tastes. I want what I do. I'm like George to Paul, and let it be. Whatever it is that will please you, I will do it. Right.
I don't think he was saying that in a positive way, though.
No, he wasn't. He wasn't. Right. So that's true to a point.
Right.
Right. So I'll do what I think is important. And then if it's a smash hit, if you knock it out of the park, then okay. Oh, great. Right. So that factors into the choices that I make on my editorial calendar on the little dry erase board right here. But it's not everything. I could do a Houthi episode every day. I think that would kind of be diminishing returns. In fact, it already kind of seems like it. I think Sal can relate to that as well. But depending on your niche, your mega niche, the content presents itself. So for me, the first aha moment was when you said, "Hey, how about UFOs?" And I'm like, "Oh, okay, I'm not really an expert, but start to do the research, and I do it in my style." And I realized, particularly with that Super Hornet one, I did have some things to say about the
Right.
analysis of that, right?
Yeah.
And so that one sat there at 40K for literally a month, and then went straight up, plateaued again at 800K, and then went straight up again a few months later, and then hit 1 million. And now it's at 1.8, as we saw. So, I mean, I have that one last month, which was this is the most badass carrier aviation movie ever. It was about the Lady Lex from World War II. And I don't know why, because my Lucky Luckadoo episode did well because of Masters of the Air, right? So that Lucky went through 1 million when Masters of the Air came on Apple Plus. But I don't know why this one, these are the vagaries of the algorithm. So let's talk, because we won't name drop on who we know at YouTube, but let's talk about what you know about the algorithm.
So anytime people talk about the algorithm, they're just mean the audience. That's really the other word for it. I mean, YouTube is actually pretty simple. If you just, it's like, how often do people click on your videos? And when they click on it, how long do they stay? The retention of the video, and videos that people click on more, that get more views, and that people that have long retention get pushed by YouTube, period. It's just common sense. I watch people say, "Oh, the algorithm doesn't like me," or I'm being shadow banned, or whatever it is, and everything. That's all. Basically, it's if people don't watch your videos, they're not watching because they drop off very quickly when they realize it's something not interesting, and then YouTube doesn't promote it to people anymore. So that's it's no more. It's click-through rate, like how often they click on your thumbnail or click on the video, and audience retention and audience satisfaction is the third thing. So if that's thumbs up and thumbs down, and they have surveys after videos. Did you enjoy this video? Because sometimes people will watch an entire video and not like it, which I have actually done. Whereas, I've watched a video and then I think, yeah, I don't agree with that at all. I don't, but I watched the whole thing.
So Juan has a good comment. In my experience, once you find your niche on YouTube, if you swerve too far, you get hammered, right? So Rick, I don't know if you know Juan's channel, but he does aviation, mostly commercial aviation mishap analysis brilliantly. Sometimes because the nature of the mishap, of a military mishap, is in his wheelhouse. He's an Air Force veteran. So love his analysis. Very, he's a stoic, no emotion, matter of fact. It's really, I'll say, fun to watch. But he's like a good flight instructor, and so I concur with what Juan is saying. And there's some guys that we know in my space that have swerved. And from time to time, I nibble at swerving too far. And so you'll know, right? I mean, the audience talks with their feet. And so this is what you discover along the way. So I remember early on, Mrs. Mooch was like, you're running out of Tomcat stories, and you've talked to all of your former squadron mates about their cool stories. So how are you going to keep this channel going? And I didn't really have an answer at the time. I was like, I don't know. I mean, I've been the editor of military.com, the biggest military website on the planet. And every day you started the day with a blank editorial calendar. And, so I said, I'll figure it out. But the aha moment again was that UFO episode. Because then once the audience doesn't like shoot you in the face, you're like, okay, I can have command of this subject matter. And this is, it's not didactically F-14 stuff. I never, flew that airplane. I wasn't alive then, but I can leverage my outlook, my experience to provide some subject matter expertise, or at least some context or degrees of what I'm going to present in the narrative. And I think that's what people, in terms of the history episodes, have enjoyed. So, Robin Olds, the popularity of that episode really convinced me that history was something that I could do. And I've done a number of others. And then I'll bring folks aboard that either wrote the book about that battle or, were there, Desert Storm particularly. I'll get some guys who were, getting shot at or got shot down, all those kinds of things. And so now suddenly you realize the editorial calendar, it's not quite infinite, but it's let's call it unlimited, and so now it's just a matter of keeping the momentum going. And so the other element of my channel was current events, and that didn't start with October 7th. It started with the Russian invasion of Ukraine, and I did an episode riffing on Justin Bronk's writings at RUSI, and then I reached out to Justin Bronk and said, hey, I did this thing and the episode hit 1 million views. He's like, yeah, I subscribed to your channel. And I'm like, hey, would you come on and talk to me? And he's like, yeah, I'd love to. And so now Justin's become, he's won the Moochie twice, and he's a money guy. I met him in real life in DC. He's become a friend. And so this is the beauty of this enterprise, and that's the other thing, is the sort of charity and altruism and the other things you can do. I'm helping get Afghan pilots back from Islamabad, and they're coming back to the States. I've helped with that effort. I was approached by some other Academy alums that are working on that, and it's working, and they're coming back. And so, this thing didn't exist 3 years ago, and now, like you, I've been with you walking around Greater Atlanta, and people stop you. We're going to have sushi, or we're on our way to a Mexican restaurant, and they stop you and they want to talk about guitar technique. And, you're always very gracious. But I have that happen to me too, and Carrie always rolls her eyes. But, we're on the airplane coming back from Tailhook at Reno, and the guy reaches over, love the channel, which I always love. It's just amazing at my age, because I'm 3 years older than you. But, it's great stuff. So let's see what Bernard says here. So he says, here we are, 260 plus YouTubers with 4.5 million subscribers between them. I'm a small YouTuber with 3,000 subs, and this gives me a push. Brilliant. That is so cool, because, it can happen, right? It's right. And this is what Rick said to me, because Rick, you remember between December of 2020 and April of 2021, I was like, I suck. I'm no good at this. I'm going to quit. You're like, no. At bats, you got to keep swinging, slugger, and that was correct. So, I
knew it was going to happen, Ward. I knew it.
So Bernard, if you have 3,000 subs, that you're doing something right.
That's right.
When you get into the 4 digits, right? So that's cool that this gives you a push, because it's not saturated. Everybody has a chance. Oh, we just saw a stat. How many billion views? What did Jim just sent us this stat about? How many billion people are on YouTube?
Yeah,
right. So how do you break out on that? Well, you just do something that's differentiated, and the algorithm takes care of the rest, right? So what did TSG says? UFO, 99.5% of that discussion is not UFOs and can be fully explained. The 0.5% is I don't know what that word is. Nephilim getting caught. Okay. I don't know what that, if anybody can explain what that word is, I'd be grateful. So yeah, it's, do you have the work ethic? And Rick warned me, hey, this is hard. And some months later, I was like, you know what, Rick, this is hard. You know, I've never worked harder. Right. And I've had some pretty tough jobs.
I loved it when you said that, Ward. That was
I've literally never worked harder. But you know what? I've never loved the work to the degree, obviously I love flying Tomcats and serving my country, but loving this and appreciating the consideration I've been given by the viewers, and getting to meet my posse, my patrons, your posse, guys who are now my best friends, rekindling a relationship with Jim Barber, through now with you, we're doing all kinds of things, and it's only just begun, right? You're at 4 million subscribers, and you've only
Tomorrow,
just begun.
tomorrow, Ward.
Tomorrow, right? Okay. So, DWD, are you jamming an SG62? All right, so let's talk gear just real quick.
Isn't it 60? Is it 61 or
It's
63?
61.
Ward?
Yeah, it's
61.
Right. So, in fact, here I'll bring me on the big. I'll go. Let me go full size on me. All right. So,
man,
this is the Heritage 61, right? So again, I was looking at a guitar. Rick and I are talking. He's like, hey, at the time I had a Rickenbacker and a Jackson. So the only other humbucker guitar I had was this Les Paul, right? Which is, my go-to. So long story short, got this at the end of December. Me and my bass guitarist from Danger Boy, TJ, went to Chuck Levin's in DC, legendary music store. Now, you'll note, I moved because everybody, when they talk about an SG, they'll talk about neck drop, right? So I moved the strap button from here to here.
Horn.
Yeah, which is where Tommy Iommi model has it. So I did that. But I love this guitar. Super cool guitar. So now I'm actually an all Gibson man, right? So I got.
Well, Ward, I did say to you that when you have your backup guitar, you need a backup guitar with humbuckers.
Right. Yes. So if I break a string, right, I just grab the other one. But as I look at the set list, I'm figuring out what are the songs I'm going to play the SG, and what are the songs I'm going to play the Les Paul, and what are the songs I'm going to play the Junior, right? Because my wife got me this Junior last Christmas, which is an awesome guitar. So the personality of each of these three Gibsons is very distinct, and anybody who plays them knows, right? And so basically, the SG is a little brighter. It's funny, Joe Bonamassa just did a video about SGs and talks about how he ignored them forever, and now he's learned how to come to terms with them. But just obsessing about gear is fun, right? This is what drew me to Rick's channel. Here's my pedalboard, by the way. So basically right to left, tuner, distortion, boost, delay, and a phaser, classic Phase 90 MXR. At the top are the pedals that are in the have been moved down for now, right? So the Memory Boy is a delay pedal that I just never loved. The Halo is a delay pedal that our good friend Tim Pierce convinced me to get with one of his episodes. The problem, I love the sound, but in the heat of battle, these 2 foot, switches, if you hit the wrong one, you're lost. And so I just want the left one, and I kept in the heat of battle hitting this, and all of a sudden it sounds terrible. And then this ODR1 was another purchase because of a Tim Pierce YouTube episode, which, again, it sounded great until I didn't really love it. And so I went back to this JHS Angry Driver. So again, it's just a blast.
One of those things, Ward, you try these things, and then all of a sudden you kind of get bored of them after a while, and you got to swap them out, right? You get the sound, you try something. Oh man, this delay sounds way better than that one.
Yeah.
I still don't know what the difference, the Wazacraft Boss tuner, how different can the tuner be from the regular Boss tuner, Ward?
It's probably
it's
$50.
like $50 more.
Yeah, $50 difference.
What is it other than I don't have no idea.
I'm a sucker for that though. I'm like, oh yeah, I got to have the Wazacraft, right? So Tom says that strap button on the top horn makes me nervous. Why? It makes the guitar less head heavy. It works great.
Probably because there's not a lot of surface area for it to screw in, but it's actually fine because it goes pretty deep in.
Yeah, no, it worked. I did that myself. I'm pretty proud of not
Did
being
you drill it though, Ward? You must have, right?
I drilled it. Yeah. I wasn't loving having to do it, but it really was awkward. People talk about the neck drop. It is a thing.
Yes.
With an SG, and it was awkward. And so doing a little YouTube research, and when I realized, that the Tommy Iommi model had it on the horn. I'm like, okay, so this is within the realm of possibility, and I love it now. You know, it still can dip a little bit, but it's not as obnoxious.
Okay, L. Scott, look at that, Ward. You need a Firebird for that final Gibson tone.
I agree. Right. I need a flying V. I need a flying V too. My needs are endless. You know, and that's the beauty. It's like, I'm a golfer too. I need another putter. I need another driver.
A nice Pelham Blue Firebird would be great.
Okay. Yes. Yes. So I also need the Rick Beato signature double cutaway. I played that guitar at his house. Let me get the picture back up here. So that is a fast guitar. And for what I'm doing in Danger Boy, particularly, it's a 3-piece. So unlike Miles from Clever that had 4 guys, I'm without a net now. I've never practiced more, and I'm having to learn parts like accurately, you know. And Rick and I were talking about this the other morning. For instance, I have played "Won't Get Fooled Again" for years, never played it right, and so now I'm actually learning the fills, right? And so, in fact, let me see if I can. I don't know if you can hear the guitar not plugged in, but you know, so you know the. Right, those fills, all of that stuff, the lead. Right, so all of that, I never took the time to learn it. That's, you know, the beauty. That's what's fun about being in a band, for one thing. I love playing music live, and we have some shows coming up, including Moochapalooza on July 13th in Annapolis. So again, Tom Butwin, hope you can join us. Patrons, hope you guys will be there. I know some of on the chat are going to be there, and so forth. But you know, this is what drew me to your channel, Rick, because I'm trying to be a better guitarist, right? And so I've always had a lazy right hand, and I've always been not a fast lead player. And so I was drawn to your breakdown, the circle of fifths, and memorizing the fretboard, and you know, how can it be another better improvisational player? So that's why I subscribed, you know, and then I had the good fortune of us becoming friends on the backside of that. But if you're in the chat or you're watching and you're a, you know, more than just a recreational player, if you take your instrument seriously, particularly we're talking about the guitar, Rick's channel is the place to go. What he does is make music theory digestible to the layman. You know, I don't know how many times I've tried to memorize the fretboard. I've tried to get into music theory, and it just never takes because it's really complicated. You know, like my old lead guitarist used to say, music is math, and he's an engineer, test pilot kind of guy. And I think that's true. And guess what? I'm a poli-sci major, you know, so.
Well, Ward, I flunked out of math, so it's not, you know.
I know, but you have an analytic mind, you know. So what is my chair? It's, I don't know. It's a gaming chair I got at Office Depot or whatever. You know, it's got a cool back. It really has good lumbar support. Yeah, I like it. I think you go to any one of those, you know, big box office supply stores will have a cool selection of chairs. And like Rick, I spend like all day in my chair here.
True.
One says, I would recommend one channel primarily due to the time constraints of content creation. I so agree with that. Now, Rick has 2 channels. We've chatted about me having a second one, but I am bandwidth limited because I'm a team of one, and I think Juan's probably a team of one as well. You know, do one thing well, I think is the thing to start. What is your niche? You know, I think Juan's right on. And you venture out of that at your peril because it's a fragile thing. You know, an audience paying attention, having affinity, loyalty. You know, it's you can hazard that by getting too cute or deciding that, you know, you're going to do something else.
So, I would say, Ward, the one thing that I always have stuck to is I just made make videos that are interesting to me. That's all. And I've always stuck to that. I make videos that are interesting to me, and it served me well, because I must have very, broad taste or something that draw people in, I guess. But any topic that I'm interested in, that's all it takes. And some videos don't do well, but I make them just because it's things that I'm interested in.
Well, I think it starts with establishing credibility, right? So you establish credibility around things that you are inherently credible on, right? So for me, it was the F-14, and I grabbed that model and was talking about goose and flat spins and all of that, right? And then from there, people like, oh, I trust this guy, I like his manner, and so now I can talk about other things than just didactically F-14s. So for you, it's like, oh yeah, I was a music theory producer, rock and roll performer, songwriter. So when you talk about jazz, you can do so with some level of credibility, and so you're not Charlie Parker, but you can speak to it with, I certainly want to know what you think about this, and so I think that's what I've done when I venture out of the straight stick carrier aviation stuff. But again, I heed Juan's counsel there. You don't want to get too far afoot, and because people will show you how that goes, and you'll start having unsubscribes, and suddenly your numbers are, you hit a low water mark, and then you can't get out of it. And I know there's some folks in our space that were huge 3-4 years ago, and now no matter what they do, they can't get out of low 5 digits. And I think it's a function, to my eye, of there is an air of white knuckle, like, oh geez, I'm going down. And so the audience perceives that. They're like, well, why would I hang out with a guy who's like, not on his game? Is this sort of thing going on that's desperate? So I think it's like in golf, right? I play my best when I don't care, that's why I play best like at sunset. I'm just smooth and I'm pure in it. And if it's a tournament, I'm like holding on too tight, and and so that's kind of the way I want to approach my YouTube channel. It's like, it's not that I don't care, but I'm going to talk about things that interest me in a way that I feel like is appropriate. And then, either people jump on or they reject me, or they you get haters. We both have haters. I've earned them in a number of ways. And they are vocal. The only thing I will say, this is another YouTube thing, different than particularly Twitter or Facebook. YouTube gives creators the tools to crush that stuff and not have it weaponized. That's different than Twitter. And so I very much appreciate that. So people are like, hey, what happened? I'm like, oh, geez, I don't know. So, and this is another thing Rick taught me early, is just don't, if a tone starts getting negative, crush it. And then it becomes self-policing a little bit. But, you don't have to tolerate that on your channel. It's my house, and so you show up at my house and you start being rude, I'm going to ask you to leave. Or if you're exceptionally rude, I'm going to throw you out, and so, yeah, don't let the trolls storm the gate, is one saying there. That's exactly right. And YouTube gives you the tools to do that.
Yeah. If people are, you bring on someone from an interview and people say really rude things about them, or I don't, or just cursing in the I don't curse on my channel myself. Although when I interview Nuno Betancourt, Nuno does. Like every sentence.
So Todd Hurleman says you should just stay at your jobs. YouTube is not going to be around this time next year. I think that's not true, Todd. I'm just going to say YouTube will be around. In fact, YouTube is growing. YouTube is the #1 ad revenue media outlet in the world. And that's not getting any smaller. And I think YouTube is ahead of this the reason people are attacking X and Facebook and TikTok, you're not seeing YouTube in that conversation because they're ahead of it in ways that the other social media outlets are not. So I think it has a utility that's going to be around for a while. And as far as staying at your jobs, if I think for all of us that do this full time, what happened is, because I again, it's a little clickbaity with the headline, but I didn't quit my job and then become a YouTuber. I became a YouTuber, and then at some point it became like I didn't even have a choice in terms of whether it was smart to dedicate all of my workday and beyond to creating YouTube episodes. In fact, I went to my boss at the Naval Institute, Admiral Daly, and I said, I'm the worst employee you have because when I'm here, I'm not here. I'm in a meeting thinking about my episodes and on my phone, like answering comments. And he's like, I get it. So I said, I need to leave. And so he figured out a graceful exit, and I actually hired my relief, and we got it done. So,
Ward, I just have to say this thing. This is a weird thing. So Apple did this weird thing and I finally figured it out. If you go like this and you do a thumbs up, hold on. Then it does thumbs up like that. It has to be a little bit away from your head. You got to hold it there straight for a second. If I go like this, look at that, Ward.
Whoa, look at you.
I figured that out.
Well, that happens in Zoom because we do our happy hour at our
I was talking to my sisters, and my sister was like, why does it do that? And I was sitting here like this, and then I was like, my thumb was like this, and it occurred to me, when you do a thumbs up, it does thumbs up. When you do a thumbs down, I wonder if you do a thumb sideways, if it'll do it here. Probably not.
No, it's binary. So I'm not sure what MT Salmela 80 says. I think haters help the algorithm. Is that true?
No, the watch time and audience satisfaction and click through. That's all the metrics that YouTube works on. It doesn't work like other places that reward conflict. YouTube is a learning platform, and it's based on search. It's the second biggest search engine other than Google, and it rewards attention. Basically, it rewards people that have good content that people click on and watch.
So Patrick Ryan says, what I'm concerned about is becoming a slave to the algorithm and having to churn out content at a pace that is detrimental to one's flow. Precisely. That's what we're talking about. That is a thing that can easily happen. And so at once you have to be aware of the metrics, and almost daily, Rick and I do a deep dive on each other's trends and what's going on and why did this happen. And we're a member of a Discord thing, all the YouTube big creators and there's always people stressing about trends and what's going on with this and is this right? And however, you got to fight becoming as you put it, a slave to the algorithm, because that is what we call in the fighter business a nose low spiral, and you're just going to keep chasing a thing that's going down and down and down. It's kind of like my early novelist career. So first two books are like this, third one goes like this, fourth one goes like this. And I'm doing 75% of what I did before, and so, when you hit that trend, if you keep worrying about it, then there's an atmosphere and aura you put out that the audience will pick up on, and they're going to bail even faster, so at once you have to care, especially if it's your job, right? I mean, revenue matters, but you can't care, and so if you look at just go to my homepage, you can see I can do 400,000 and I can do 50. I can do 1.9 million and I can do 25 back to back. And so I'm at peace with that. I'm trying hard on every one. It's not like I'm, not trying to make a great episode, but I'm at peace with the idea that it's not up to me ultimately. And that works out, so your responsibility, Patrick, is create great content that entertains you and thereby will entertain an audience, and everything else. Again, I'm not saying don't be cognizant of the algorithm, but you can't drive to it. And I agree with Rick. People that I see complaining about the algorithm or making cruddy content and then blaming the algorithm. You know, that's reverse engineering something that it cannot be reverse engineered.
If you just say the algorithm is the audience, then it's like blaming the audience. If the audience doesn't like my content, doesn't like what I put out, it's like, what?
Exactly.
Maybe because it's not good.
Yes. So let's do a couple more here. L. Scott again says, Rick is your wingman and you his on YouTube. Yeah, that's probably right. Right. We're each other's wingman from time to time. Yeah, wingman. Yeah, got it. Let's do one more here. Just one more sage bit of advice from our good friend Juan. Pace yourself on content creation. I do 2 videos per week minimum for my channel. Yes. Now, again, Juan, I think you'd agree. Now that you picked your niche, but you have a niche that the content organically is there because you cover mishaps, aviation mishaps, and unfortunately, they're there. But for sure, you got to pace yourself. That's my good friend Jello Aiello at the Fighter Pilot Podcast, who he and I cruised together on my last cruise when I was CAG Ops and he was a young Hornet pilot, warned me early on about burnout. So I'm not unfamiliar with it, not as a YouTuber, but as a content creator at military.com and We Are the Mighty and at the Naval Institute. But he's right, and so you've got to exhale every once in a while. Again, Rick and I sometimes will go like, I'm not even going to do anything today. I'm just going to back away and just take today off to then show up tomorrow, live to fight another day. So you've got to pulse that in yourself, right, Rick? I mean, you've had your channel a lot longer than I have. What have you done to fight burnout?
Oh, I'll take a nap.
Sure, yeah, nap.
Like 15-minute nap, and I'm ready. No, I don't know. I just I don't ever feel. If I don't feel like doing something, I don't do it. But I'm psyched to do this, and I have a lot of fun making videos. So there's always stuff to talk about, and it's the surprises that I think are really the things that are really fun. I just had an interview with this Indian bass player, Mohini Day, who's amazing. She's 27 years old and 1 million views. And, people on my channel didn't know her. Some people did, but it's, amazing. You just never know what piques someone's interest, what topics. So it's, there you go. Ward, if I could get my dogs to come down here and be on camera, but they would, they could not behave enough.
She's a German wire-haired pointer.
Beautiful. So
she was in Westminster last year. Yeah. Okay. Well, Rick,
Ward,
thank you for joining us and giving us over an hour of your time. It looks like I may be coming down to your place again next month. We may be seeing our friends, the Dregs, at the place where your show happened. So more planning to follow. But if I do that, we'll do another episode for sure. But thanks for coming aboard and giving us some of these best practice. And we're not telling anybody to quit their job. Don't do any reckless gesture, or this isn't the solution for a midlife crisis or whatever. This is something you've got to be, you obviously have to have the gift of being able to communicate, look in the camera. People have to want to hang out with you for 20 minutes at a time. But I'm very lucky that Rick saw something in me when we were having beers at McGarvey's that translated into this YouTube channel. And I'm very lucky that I have the number of supporters and subscribers that I do. And like Rick is saying, I've only just begun, and I wake up every day excited to do more and find other things to talk about and to cover. So again, thanks to everybody on this episode for showing up and joining us for a very cool chat. Some of you guys will look forward to seeing you in a few months here in Annapolis for Muchapalooza. And, thanks again, Rick, and we'll talk to you again, very, very soon.
Thanks, Ward.
All right, so I'll do my final thing. So if you're not already a subscriber, become one so you don't miss things like this episode. We don't normally go on this track, but I'm glad we were able to do this with our good friend Rick Beato. Again, thanks to Rick for joining us. And in the meantime, I look forward to talking to you guys again very soon.